So today I'm going to talk to you about sports drinks and athletic performance. So before I get started, I'd like you to think of some of your own conceptions of sports drinks. Who do you think needs them? What do you think they do? Do you think they work? And just think about that as I present this, and we'll get back to it. But what people think, etc. Some people have certain preconceptions about sports drinks. You probably have some of your own, so just take a minute and think about that. Okay. So sports drinks have become a very popular drink of choice for many people. They're popular, a lot of people drink them, they're everywhere. Gatorade, Powerade, there's some various offshoot brands. A lot of people drink sports drinks, and a lot of people seem to think they have a need for them. So we're going to look at three very important things. There's a few important questions that come up with sports drinks. Why do athletes drink them? Do they work if an athlete drinks them, and are they effective? Who needs them is another important question to ask when it comes to sports drinks. So the first question is, why do athletes consume sports drinks? So the first main answer as to why an athlete drinks anything when they exercise is exercise causes hydration loss. So now obviously water could solve this hydration problem. So there's obviously more reasons to drink sports drinks than that, because a sports drink provides hydration, water provides hydration. A lot of people think water is better. In a lot of cases that's true, but there are certain cases where a sports drink is maybe a better option than water. So that's because water is not the only thing lost in sweat in exercise. In the sweat, there's also carbohydrates and electrolytes, and the body loses these during exercise as well. So that's why a sports drink might be more beneficial. It's because carbohydrates and electrolytes are not found in water. So an athlete may choose a sports drink, or a coach may choose a sports drink for an athlete to replace that. And there's a reason that I actually don't have listed here. That is also taste. Some people might prefer the taste of a sports drink. Obviously it has sugar in it, and they're often flavored like a lemon lime or the blue one and grape flavors. There's a few different flavors that most sports drinks have. And some people might prefer the sweetness and their flavor to just plain water. So if an athlete drinks less water, they're less hydrated. So maybe if they prefer the taste of a sports drink, they'll drink more of that. They'll be more hydrated, and that will prevent dehydration. So, are they effective? So let's go back to your preconceived notions of a sports drink. Some people seem to think that they don't work at all, there is no need for them. And as we discussed the last slide, that is not true. Sports drinks do have a very legitimate use in the athletic community if you're exercising. So the short answer is yes, they are effective. However, some people, like I said, some people think they don't work at all. Some people might be on the opposite end of that spectrum and think anyone who is even mildly active needs sports drinks. That, however, is false. They are most effective in 4 key situations: prolonged exercise, exercise in extreme heat, vigorous exercise, or major fluid loss. So let's go over what these mean briefly. Prolonged exercise, so that's kind of obvious. Exercise over a long period of time, generally about an hour or more, and someone needs sports drinks. It's also important to note this isn't just one bout of exercise. So let's say a soccer or basketball tournament. Soccer and basketball alone are sports that take up a lot of energy, so in those sports alone an athlete might need a sports drink. But especially in a tournament, a soccer tournament or a basketball tournament obviously lasts a long period of time. They're playing 3, 4, 5 games in a day. So if an athlete doesn't need it for one game, they'll definitely need it in a tournament. So because they're playing for long periods of time, multiple times in a day. The next one is exercise in extreme heat. It's important to note that these 3 categories are independent of prolonged exercise. So it doesn't necessarily need to be prolonged exercise in extreme heat. Exercise in extreme heat alone is enough to potentially need a sports drink. Obviously it's hot outside, you'll lose more liquid, and again, in your sweat which you lose, there's the carbohydrates and electrolytes, which is why you would need a sports drink in the first place. Vigorous exercise, so again, independent of prolonged exercise. People generally do not do vigorous exercise for a prolonged period of time. So vigorous exercise on its own is enough to sometimes require a sports drink. An example of vigorous exercise might be a workout to exhaustion, something like that, where you're doing a lot of work and you're obviously again going to lose sweat. You need to replace the carbohydrates and electrolytes. Other major fluid loss. This is maybe, for example, if someone's had the stomach flu and they've been vomiting, have diarrhea. That can make a person dehydrated, and that again can cause carbohydrate and electrolyte loss. And again, in that case, a sports drink would be necessary to replace those. So if someone's been sick, or maybe even still is sick and they've lost a lot of fluid, maybe giving them a sports drink isn't a bad idea. So who needs them? Picture for a moment your local grocery store or supermarket. Wherever you do your groceries. I work in groceries, so I know this firsthand. There's generally at least in the grocery store I work at anyways, but I think most stores have this. There's generally one aisle dedicated to water, juices, that sort of thing. And quite often in that aisle, somewhere in that aisle, there is a section to sports drinks. So there's probably Powerade, Gatorade, maybe a store brand, and a couple of offshoot brands. There's generally going to be at least 3 major rows of a sports drink. So what this tells you, if grocery stores sell a lot of sports drinks are popular. Grocery stores wouldn't sell them if they weren't. So because of this popularity, a lot of people drink them. A lot of people think they need them, or even like the taste, even if they aren't active. This is unfortunate to some extent, because the average person doesn't need a sports drink. As we saw last slide, there are certain qualifications in potentially needing a sports drink. The sedentary or lightly to moderately active person usually doesn't have a need for a sports drink. You're not going to lose enough carbohydrates and electrolytes in your average day just by, say, walking your dog or doing light housework. You aren't going to lose enough carbohydrates and electrolytes doing those things to require a sports drink. Not only does the average person not need them, it can even hurt the average person. If we think back to what sports drinks are made of, carbohydrates, they're sweetened so they have sugar. And if you think, what does the body do with sugar or carbohydrates which it's not going to burn off? It stores them. Storing sugars and carbohydrates leads to weight gain. So it's just like someone who drinks too much sugary pop or too much of a sugary juice or something like that. Just like a pop or a sugary juice, a sports drink can lead to weight gain because of the carbohydrates and sugar. So just to summarize that, the only active people, very active people, need a sports drink. So in conclusion, we saw sports drinks are effective. So if you think back to your preconceptions, maybe you didn't think sports drinks were that effective, maybe you didn't think there was much of a need for them. However, as we saw, there is a need for them. However, this need is only in certain people. If you think back again to your preconceptions, maybe you said that everyone needs a sports drink. Maybe you thought if you were even lightly active, you could use a sports drink. However, again, as we saw, that is not true. We even saw that sports drinks do more harm than they do good in the average person. So that's my presentation on sports drinks, and thank you for watching.